Shalini, thank you very much for your time, your valuable time today as well. Obviously, you know, Federal Bank, a very big organisation in India, and you've embarked on a very big transformation in terms of customer experience. Perhaps you can just share a little bit around it. It's a very competitive environment, obviously, in banking in India, and how do you see that project? How do yourself? I know that Shyam, your CEO, was very involved as well, and how do you see top management's involvement in a project as big as this?
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here on a session with Oracle and Adrian and the team. Thank you very much. I hope everybody is keeping themselves safe. These are difficult times that we're going through. So Adrian, to come back to your point, let me just set the context a little bit. At the outset, this is really about a business case. This is about making sure we're delivering value to our stakeholders, whether they're customers, whether they're employees, whether they're investors, shareholders, regulators, the entire spectrum of stakeholders that we get. So if I look at it from a banking context, I think you're familiar with banking in India, but just to kind of highlight some of the key kind of tenets that is driving the banking experience. First of all, banking has become fairly commoditized, actually. There is very little in terms of product differentiation. And what's really making a difference, therefore, from a customer standpoint is the customer experience, is the user experience. That's really what's driving the choice that customers make of their banking partner. That's one aspect. Customers are becoming absolutely more demanding. I think they expect the ease and convenience of a Swiggy or an Uber or an Amazon while availing banking services. But at the end of it, they do want the safety and security of a bank, the safety and security of an organization like Federal Bank backing them. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy. I want the ease and convenience of being able to buy something on an Amazon, buy a financial product in the same way, but I want the backing of a bank like Federal. So that's the second kind of aspect that is happening. The third is, I think fintechs are becoming a very large part of the ecosystem in India as well as worldwide. I mean, today we've got fintechs in lending, we've got fintechs in just regular deposit taking, fintechs in payments. You know very well that it's Google Pay and Phone Pay that has the largest market share on payments in India. So our traditional competitors are no longer the competitors. We've got the fintechs coming into the ecosystem. And overarching all this is obviously the fact that margins are declining. The spreads between lending and deposit taking is narrowing. So banks like us have to find ways and means to make sure that we optimize costs. And what better way to do that than to look at our existing customer base and make inroads into that. So that's really where banking is. Now, if I were to kind of dovetail it down into Federal Bank, while these are kind of the broader concepts, as you mentioned, Federal Bank is a leading private sector bank in India. The last few years, we've been growing very rapidly. We are one amongst the top few private sector banks now in India. We compete extensively with the private sector banks in India. A couple of years back, we had identified a key gap in our capabilities. While we had branches, while we had the mobile banking, internet banking, we just recognized the fact that there is a gap in our ability to deliver a holistic experience to the customer, in our ability to tie all of this together to come as a unified face. So we commenced an exercise to review what exactly would help bridge that gap as we grow bigger, as we expand into more social media and digital marketing, etc. And after an extensive exercise, which Adrian, you were a part of and helped us through, we chose Oracle as our go-to solution, the next-gen CRM solution. And we actually don't even call it a CRM solution. We call it a CXCOE, which is Customer Experience Center of Excellence. And that's the terminology we're using. We're not calling it CRM solution. This is a huge part of our strategic objective to bring sales, service, marketing, all of them together so that when we go back to the customer, whether it is in the form of our branches interacting with the customer, whether it's in the form of our mobile banking platform, our internet banking platform, our presence on social media, at the end of the day, we are here to provide a highly personalized experience. I think one of the videos mentioned that very clearly to say that
Yep.
How do you get the power of that personalization to the customer? And we do believe that with the CXCOE that we're implementing, we will be able to get this across not just once, but multiple times, not just on one platform, but 12,000 employees, millions of interactions on social media. How do we get that personalized experience? So that's really the background to why CXCOE is important and why it is something that is driven literally from the top. Not just the MD CEO, but the board of directors have been involved actually.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think a lot of organizations embark on projects that don't necessarily have the visibility at that board level, at that CEO, at your level, the COO level, and are probably not championed all the way through the project. So it is an ongoing journey. What sort of advice would you give to people if they were thinking about this? How much time, especially at that executive level, is really important to keep it? Because I if people don't know, I'll just read out your vision. To be the most admired bank, which is digitally enabled. To have a sharp focus on micro, medium, and middle market enterprises. So, you obviously have that in your vision statement around digital, but how important do you think it is from an executive standpoint for organizations?
I think that's a very relevant question to ask. And it's something that we've kind of, embedded within ourselves. I think it's got to come from the top. So, the way we've approached it very clearly is, first of all, we have a board of directors which consists of independent directors, etc. We've ensured that the board of directors are involved in the selection of the final solution that we made, what the rationale for it is, and why we're going in. They're heavily invested in the decision, and actually they spend once a quarter, they spend time at that level, which is independent directors, etc., reviewing how we're making progress. Obviously, the MD CEO is heavily invested. You were familiar with the fact that through the year of we made the final decision, multiple occasions where he challenged each one of us as to why we're doing this and not that, etc. So he is completely involved. Now, as an accountable executive, I'm the accountable executive actually. I'm the strategic sponsor actually for the project. As a board director, as a member of the board of directors leading the retail banking business in the bank, I have been appointed as a strategic sponsor for the project, and that shows the organization as a whole at what level we are pitching this. It's not something that we are pitching at levels below, and that's where it's coming from. The accountable executive was picked and chosen by us and is a direct report into me in the structure. So it's not like hidden within some other unit or kept. So we've got actually a team of people headed by a very senior person who's the accountable executive who's devoted full time to this implementation. And the reason, Adrian, we've kind of invested in this is, our experience tells us, and the challenge in front of us tells us that we run a risk of this becoming a technology project. If we treat this as a technology project, it will. No offense meant to any of my technology colleagues. They're very, very good at what they do. Having said that, this cannot be a technology project. This is a people-driven project. It is about people management. It is about making sure my 12,000 employees understand what this is about, know how to use it, know what value to derive from it. It's about my 300 contact center agents being able to use this effectively when that call comes, when they're taking that call from the customer. It's about my marketing colleagues knowing very clearly, when a customer is on Facebook or on Instagram, what do we pitch to them? So for us, this is really about change management. This is about people, whether it's cloud, whether it's on-prem, whether it's data structure, this way, that way will fall into place. We have no doubts about that with all the experts working on it. And that's the reason why it comes from the board of directors, to the MD CEO, to myself, to say this is about change management. This is not a technology solution that we're delivering.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. In fact, that was one of the other areas we're going to discuss is, a lot of people see some of these projects just as a technology project. You need to put a new system in. And I think as you've highlighted, it's not, the system is maybe an enabler, but you actually have to go through a transformation for the organization, which I think in many cases gets underestimated on how big that is. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on, how you think about that, maybe with some of your other experiences as well.
So I think, I'll probably put it in a way which says, what are the kind of pillars that we have taken up to embed CX as at the heart of our strategy? So while I may have alluded to some of these in my kind of last 5-7 minutes or so, the way we see it in the organization, the way I see it, the way the board of directors sees it is, there are three key pillars for us to embed CX as the heart of the organization. The first one is digital at the fore, human at the core. You read our vision, which is to be the most digitally enabled bank, etc. Having said that, I think it's digital at the fore and human at the core. What we really mean is, yes, we are here to provide digital capabilities to the customers. We will ensure customers have the entire range of digital services, so, whether it's mobile banking for a retail individual like you and me, mobile banking for a small, medium enterprise, mobile banking for a very large enterprise like Larsen & Toubro, Reliance, etc. We have capabilities for all of them. Having said that, we recognize that Federal Bank is known for its relationship management, is known for the warmth of human relationships, which customers value. And therefore, as an example, what we've done is, while we have all these digital capabilities, we actually have a position called Digital Banking Ambassador across the length and breadth of the country. And in each branch, we have somebody called a Digital Angel. Their role really is to handhold the customer through the process. Let's not assume the customer knows how to use mobile banking or knows how to use internet banking. You need to give them that. I mean, if you go back in time, ATMs needed people to help people understand ATMs. Some customers take to it intuitively, some customers take to it instinctively, but there are others who need that kind of, hand-holding. So that's how we've embedded this philosophy which says digital at the fore, human at the core. So that's kind of one tenet of why CX and, the whole solution around it. The second is what we call as branch light, distribution heavy. What we really mean is, if you go back in time for Federal Bank till about 2015 or so, we expanded our branch presence massively in the country. We grew from 600 branches to about 1,200 branches. And there was a good rationale for it. We were underrepresented in a lot of geographies, and India is a vast country, and therefore we were underrepresented, and therefore we made that investment in terms of branches. But having done the branch presence over the last 5 years, we've honestly not built, we've done very, very few branches. In the last 5 years, we probably built about, installed about 80 odd branches, opened about 80 branches. And the reason we've done that is because we've turned it around to say, now we've got the branches, so let's go distribution heavy. So we invested in relationship managers, we invested in digital means of reaching customers. I'll give you the most recent example of what Federal Bank has done. We're the only bank in the country to tie up with two neobanks that are out there in the market. One is called Epify, which has an app called Fi, and the other is Jupiter. The tie-up with them is such that they provide the customer experience at the front end through UI, UX, apps, etc. But we provide the entire range of banking services, whether it's opening a deposit, whether it's making a transfer, etc. And today, our relationship with these two fintech partners is a good example of how we've been branch light but distribution heavy, because these two partners together getting us about 3,000 accounts a day. And our branches were an equal number. So, you've just multiplied it 2x times through these fintech partnerships. And, so that's the kind of second tenet of why CX is important. Last but not the least, actually, is the whole aspect of data. I think I've heard some videos on CDP, etc., things that we're working on, and we've come a long way on that. And I think we run, one of the things most people end up with on data is this whole, analysis paralysis situation. So we are trying to guard ourselves against that, to say it's not just effective use of data, it is converting the data into information and through that insights. I'll give you an example. We recently launched our credit card proposition, and we started off by saying we've got a base of customers who we think are eligible for a credit card. Let's mine that data and use that data first before we do any new to bank sourcing. So we designed a program where we sent out a range of, we did a lot of analytics around it, identified the right set of customers, and then triggered off SMSs and emails to those customers with a digital experience. 3 clicks. So if Shalini Warrior is an eligible customer, she gets a, outstanding offer from Federal Bank. All she needs to do is go into it, 3 clicks, and her not only is a credit card application approved, but the virtual card is delivered on her Fed mobile and she can use it to buy something from Amazon right away. So, that was the third tenet of how data is used to deliver customer experience, to deliver an effective solution to the customers. So in summary, if you look at it, between digital at the fore, human at the core, branch-like distribution heavy, and data converted into information, into insights, if these three tenets are taken into account and embedded, CX is kind of overarching across all this. CX, the whole work we're doing with Oracle on sales, service, marketing, etc., is around these three tenets, Adrian.
No, that's really interesting. And I'd probably add that it's how you innovate across all those areas. As you mentioned, you've got, for want of a better word, the traditional branch, then you add the innovation of the fintech, and then you add the innovation of all of the components that sit around that. Then you actually have a much more innovative experience that you can provide to your customers.
Yeah, the multiplier effect, Adrian, that comes into, the fintechs is a very good example. It's just given us 2x of what we were doing through a completely digital means. It's not a substitute for what my branches do, but it's kind of double what my branches do in terms of number of accounts. So that's an example of how.
And it's like, my kids would never go to a branch. They want to do everything on their mobile. So you're actually also looking at a different segment that you can bring into your
customers. Absolutely.
Yeah. So look, maybe just one last question I have for you. How do you think about success? And maybe it's a little bit of a, too early sometimes to think about that, but how do you think about this is helping us? It's because it's not a project stop and start. I think it's a journey that you're on, because things will continue to evolve, especially, customer interactions and experience. So how do you think about, we're making progress, or maybe not success overall, but at least making progress towards an end goal?
Yeah. So clearly, having invested in terms of not just the monetary investment, but the time, the energy, the mind space that we're giving it, it's clearly driven by a certain set of business metrics. So at an overarching level, Adrian, all of us in the bank, are guided by the fact that our deliverable is to a set of investors. We need to deliver return on, better return on assets, return on risk-weighted assets, return on equity. So that's kind of the overarching objective, and that's something that guides our actions. We need to make sure that we're doing the right product suite for that, the right experiences for that. Having said that, that's clearly an outcome, right? It's going to be something that, yes, we measure very, very carefully and monitor very carefully. How do I translate it into something at the second level in terms of the metrics? Is really around things like cost income ratio, products per customer. These are the two guiding overarching principles we have. And out of the two, the products per customer one, both are important, but the products per customer one is close to my heart personally, and the rationale for the entire CX experience, because we've got 10 million customers. Are we selling it adequately for them? And we've got the entire suite of products. So we've got a credit card, we've got investments, we've got insurance, we've got all of that, and this entire base of about 11 million customers. How am I improving my product per customer? How am I making sure that the customer is not just a savings account customer, but is also having a credit card, is having an insurance product, and today health insurance is so necessary. So are they having a health insurance product? So product per customer is something we measure very carefully. We measure it across the base, but we also measure it separately for our high net worth individuals, for our salaried customers, for our millennial customers. We do various measures. So product per customer. Having said that, at the end of the day, if I want to translate this at the ground level, Adrian, we've realized that while these are all North Stars and people need to lead towards it and we guide people, at the end of the day, for the person on the ground, it is every day come in the morning and look up your CRM and see whether what's your next best product to offer to Shalini Warrior, who you're calling up this morning, or to Adrian, who's calling you for a request. Are you pitching your next best product? So, we measure very, very carefully what are the number of pitches that they're doing of the next best product, how many are getting converted into leads, and how many of the leads are getting converted into final products. So we kind of dovetailed it that way to say, while return on assets is the overarching one, at the end of the day, it's going to be about the next best product sold to the customer. And we measure these metrics very carefully. We have an analytics team that works with us very carefully to measure it. And my entire CX COE, the Center of Excellence, is guided by these metrics.
No, that's great. Shalini, look, thank you very much for making the time to join us today. I know your time is valuable, so thank you very much for that. I wish you all the very best on your journey. I also thank you very much for the partnership. You know, it has been great working with yourself and your team. It has been really great from our standpoint. Hope you keep safe and well, and to everyone out there, keep safe and well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, and all the best for a very beautiful summit. Thank you.